The bigger the team, the more of a pure strategist you can be. The smaller the team, the more of...
I was manifesting everything purely on the will that's, I can do anything. But I was also manifesting sort of negativity in my life as well.
Manifestation in pop culture is...
The most uncomfortable thing for me to accept was not being a strong...
Email, Slacks, everybody, this, that, and the other thing. And I'm at the point where I'm like, what am I even fucking working on anymore?
It comes down to self-awareness and knowing and discernment between, is it your mind and ego that's sort of running the course of your manifestation, or is it something that's truly coming from your heart?
If I want to make this vague vision a high definition vision, then I have to think through all the details of what I want.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Logan and
Faiez Show.
Thanks for joining us again. Faiez, tell me what we get into today.
Man, today we're talking about the 4-step framework for manifestation and how to recognize what you are strong at and what you are weak at and what to do with that information so that you can manifest the life that you want.
I think sometimes it's easy to get caught up in the buzzword of manifestation, but really in this conversation, we just look at the practical steps of what gets you from idea to creation.
If you've been watching our stuff, listening to our stuff, give us a like, subscribe, and comment. We want to hear from you. Let's get into it.
Sometimes a little easy to get caught up in the woo-woo and the buzzword of manifestation and, is it just about what you think about and where your thoughts go? And yes, that's where it starts, but then what are the steps to actually carry out that manifestation? Which I didn't even really think about the practical steps until more recently. I sort of just always had, okay, I have ideas, take action. That's how you manifest, like just essentially make it happen. And not really realizing that there's really 4 steps. It's idea, thought, plan, and action. And that if you are weak in one area or stronger in another area, or just if you're imbalanced within those 4 in a way, I don't think you can as efficiently manifest as you can if you're consciously aware of how you're performing in each of those 4. What do you look at manifestation like, or do you think about the steps? Do you think more just like, I just have to take action, just go do it? Or is there a conscious thought of like, okay, I had this idea, let me put some thought into it. Now what plan am I going to put together now that I've thought about it? And then, okay, now I need to take action on that plan.
Manifestation in pop culture is like, sit there and visualize it in as much detail as you can. Feel it, think it, imagine that it's real.
Imagine that you already have it.
It, and then it's done.
Yeah.
But that's not all there is to it. And what I've always thought, the imagine it in detail part and feel that it's real part is planning. Because I don't know if you ever sit there and try to visualize something in detail, like let's say I want a $100 million business and I visualize it. I mean, it's kind of a foggy vision at first.
Right.
And then to paint it in detail, I'm planning. What does the door to the house look like?
Yeah.
If I want to make this vague vision a high definition vision, then I have to think through all the details of what I want this office to look like. And in order to feel it with more conviction, I have to start putting action to that vision. Mm-hmm. And the more action I put to that vision, then I become familiar with the feelings that are associated with bringing it to life. And so they're all working together. Mm-hmm. So I think the visualization and feel that it's real is right, but it doesn't happen by magic. These are almost fancy words for, like you said, which is any development cycle. It's ideate, clarify the problem, the path, the plan, execute against it. You get new information, and then you just go through that cycle over and over again. Mm-hmm. And the picture becomes more high definition as you run through that process. Yeah. So manifestation is not a magical word for me.
No.
It's like super practical. I believe it. If I can see it, if I can believe it and I can action it, it will become real. So what part of idea, thought, plan, execute are you strongest at?
Ideas are always flooding in. I've gotten better over time of recognizing, okay, what are the ones that I really want to carry out? What are the ones that are sort of worth my time at this point. I think I've become a little more balanced now, but I would say my weakness is probably still in planning. I mean, I'll have ideas come in all the time. I'll think about them all the time. And then I'm like, okay, I just want to take action. Like, I just want to go do it, which is great because now my business partner for the product will reel me back in and sort of put a more logical plan in place, which I think keeps us very balanced. But in the past, like for me, like before I really understood manifestation, which my deeper understanding of it, especially with these 4 different worlds of it, came with my spiritual journey, of course. But prior to that, I was manifesting like everything purely on the will that's, oh, I can do anything. But I was also manifesting sort of negativity in my life as well, because I was just like, well, I can do anything. I can be anything. I can, like, say, for example, it was very much burning both ends of the candle on party days and my personal training days. I'm like, oh, I can do this. I can get up at 5 a.m. and train and party till like 2 a.m. and do it. But that in itself was manifesting like negative relationships in my life because I wasn't paying attention to really what my mind was creating at that time. And that was part of the just like, oh, I'm just jumping in. I'm not really thinking about a plan or really thinking about how it's actually manifesting itself in my life. I wasn't thinking about those things. I was just like, oh, I'm doing and creating anything and everything that I want.
The problem arises when you stay too long in a step or don't spend enough time in a step, right? Of each.
Where do you stay too long in a step, do you think?
My strengths are also in the ideation, and so thinking about the possibilities, the permutations, and then thinking part is the discernment part, which is assessing what is the right idea to execute against. What is the right idea to pursue? If I pursue this, what does it result in? And is that the result that I want?
Right.
But that's the strength that I bring to any situation is pointing the action in the right direction. And I've always picked partners that lean towards action first. Like, I can't say a good idea without them being like, okay, what do we do about it? And I'm like, well, fucking relax. Let's actually think this through. I just said it out loud. That doesn't mean we need to do it.
Yeah.
But that's good. Their impulse is the right yin to my yang. But we've talked about in prior episodes that you don't always have people around you. You don't always have the resources to recruit, retain, hire, freelance, contract, those complements. And so I've spent the last decade consciously studying and practicing, becoming really good at planning and execution to where I don't think either of those is a weakness of mine anymore. But different steps of those, they drain me of energy.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So we talked about it in the last episode, right? What gives you energy, what is neutral energetically, and what drains you of energy. And clarifying problems and then communicating like what I think is the best path forward gives me a ton of energy. Actually executing against that plan and knocking out tasks drains me of energy. But what I hate is having ideas that don't become reality. And so I do execute against them if I have to. You have a strength and you have a weakness. And so the question is like, how do you come to realize what your strength and what your weakness is? A lot of people want to avoid that because it's kind of uncomfortable.
I mean, it always comes back to self-awareness,
That's what the meditation comes in.
Yeah. It's really sitting back and actually acknowledging and taking inventory on what you're actually good at, what you think you're good at. So I think for me, it was more awareness of myself. And with that comes, I think, a better understanding of where you trust your gut a little bit more, where you trust your instincts. Maybe in your case, what I've learned from you is like not being all instinctual, and where do I need to like bring in a little more logic and a little more decisive plan instead of just jumping in feet first. But ultimately, I think it comes down to self-awareness and knowing and discernment between, is it your mind and ego that's sort of running the course of your manifestation, or is it something that's truly coming from your heart?
What's uncomfortable for you to accept?
Not being a strong leader. And it wasn't necessarily said to me directly like that. Most of them weren't saying it in a way of like, oh, you're a terrible leader. It was more in the sense of, Logan, you have some skills and wisdom that you could pass off if you stepped into that role, if you took that initiative, if you carried yourself in a much better manner. That was a really hard one because that went in line with just kind of becoming a better man and things that Casey was asking of me, things that I started to see in actual mentors that I was looking towards. I think I too easily slip into a category of previously, not so much anymore, of kind of wanting to be friends with everybody and not recognizing when I'm in a position more of leadership or being looked at for advice or guidance or things like that. So that's something I've worked really hard on the last like 2 or 3 years. But it was really hard to accept that about myself, that that's what was going on, especially because it was something I definitely wanted to change. It wasn't just like oh, I'm not the life of the party. That's all right. I don't need to be that person. It was, no, that's something I really want to be better at and become better at. How do I work on this? And that was a hard pill to swallow. Because it was kind of in a way like I had to admit that I wasn't being the man that I wanted to be. And as a man, that's a really fucking hard thing to admit, or even to be aware of, or even to be willing to challenge yourself on and say, oh, I need to be better at this.
If you want to get good at a thing, you can get good at a thing.
Absolutely.
And I really genuinely believe it comes back to the energy equation. What's giving you energy and what's taking away energy?
Yeah.
Maybe you're not naturally, your natural behaviors lean towards wanting to be friendly with everybody, not being a front man, but a part of you does want to rise to being able to have leadership qualities. And if you got good at that, practiced in certain moments, that could give you energy, which to me is a signal to lean into it. I never thought of myself as a leader growing up. And I'll never forget the first time I got the feedback that I was meant to be a leader. And I was like, really? Like, I didn't believe her, but I really thought about it.
Yeah.
And because I don't have front man energy, I've never been the center of attention. And so I thought, well, I'm not a leader then because I don't attract all of the attention. But I really then started to go down the route of like, okay, what do leadership qualities really mean? And we've gone on previous episodes about how I now understand leadership to be, right? Somebody that people can rely upon, being able to have a vision, help others understand how their work contributes to the completion of the vision,
Right.
making people feel valued, being able to give direct, constructive, hard to hear feedback, being able to not be liked, and being able to make people feel appreciated. Like all of those things.
You know what the umbrella is for all of those?
What?
You have a very high EQ.
You have to, yeah.
That's really what it comes down to.
And so okay, so that's an example of where maybe a personality assessment never would have told me that. My natural understanding of myself wouldn't have told me that, but somebody else's feedback to me gave me a little bit of a signal. Actually, that is the most common professional feedback that I've ever received. Like if you looked at all the feedback forms that I've ever received, natural leader is probably the most reoccurring keyword. And and that's not how I understand myself at all. I don't believe I'm a natural leader at all.
Right.
I'm a learned leader. And so if there's a seed inside of you, and that's the idea part of the manifestation cycle, then through thought, through planning and action, you can grow that seed.
Right.
And for me, that was the natural versus learned part of leadership. So I think everybody has that. There's a seed of desire in their heart that they want to grow. And maybe the signals they're giving themselves or others are giving them don't give them a high degree of confidence that they can, but if you listen, go from low res visualization to high res visualization, put plans to it, put action to it. Before you know it, people will think you were good at that shit the whole time.
Right.
And you're like, no, I've been working really hard at it.
Right. I've nurtured it.
I've nurtured it.
Yeah. You were always a natural leader. It just had to come to the surface, which took nurturing of that.